Hey everybody, how's it going? I wanted to give a behind-the-scenes look into various aspects of the stream, and there's a lot of cool stuff to go into. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Today we're going to talk about PiiqPiiq, my bot, and the nuts and bolts that make it work behind the scenes. So PiiqPiiq works with two different pieces of bot software. One is called DeepBot, which is paid software. It's about $5 a month. I've paid ahead through July of 2017, and right now intend to continue renewing indefinitely. And AnkhBot, which is a free alternative that unfortunately isn't continuing to receive supporter updates. So we'll talk about those two. DeepBot is where most of PiiqPiiq's functionality is centered. There is some functionality, namely the sound effects module in AnkhBot. Just about everything you know and love about PiiqPiiq is in this guy, DeepBot. DeepBot lets me connect to Twitch directly through PiiqPiiq, lets it associate it with my channel in particular, lets me name what points I want to use, lets me assign point multipliers for people in different viewer classes, in my cases, Patreon pledge levels. And I've got a bunch of other cool master settings that I can dork around with. When I talk about having user ranks, these default to the 42 ranks from Call of Duty, and I just think that the bosses from Chrono Trigger are a little bit more flavorful for kind of stream that we're putting on, so that's why the ranks are so named. I can interface with chat here if I want to. I can type to chat either as myself or as PiiqPiiq, which is really convenient. I don't have to worry about logging out of Twitch if I need to do something directly as PiiqPiiq. And this is where I assign points to people, bonus points for me pronouncing Titus correctly, for example. My user database is pretty cool. What this does is as soon as you join chat for the first time, any viewer joins chat for the first time, it logs their name, logs the date they joined. It goes as far back as 17th of April 2015. That's when I first got the bot, so I can't track any further back than that. How many hours you watch, it assigns points according to those multipliers I mentioned earlier. It tracks when you were last seen, so I can see if somebody popped in and then just didn't come back for a long time. Maybe something happened, something went wrong, something's going on in real life. Usually if someone comes in and I say long time no see, I'm cheating by looking at the last scene there to see when they were around last time. I do make some small notes of how somebody found the stream if I can figure that out. Usually what I have to do is go into the chat log and Control F somebody's name to see when I find them for the first time. I haven't done this for everybody. I don't really keep on top of this, but I try to track it for most people that have more than 30 hours watched. Something to keep an eye on manually. Just know which games are really drawing people in and who's sticking around. The raffle systems, this is where we have our auction system that's kind of weak right now, as I'm sure a lot of you know. It's fairly light featured and it's missing some things people would really like preventing people from outbidding someone unless if they outbid by a certain threshold. Bidding by at least an additional 100 stir points instead of doing the Price is Right thing of continually outbidding someone by 1 SP every time, and being able to check what the current bid is. So I think that I could potentially code my own version of an auction in DeepBot. It would be kind of complicated and require using a bunch of text files and things on the back end, but it's something that's doable. We'll certainly consider it. I'm going to end on channel commands because that's the meat of PiiqPiiq, so it's going to take me the most time to go through. We'll just kind of bounce everything else real quick. Music lets me do request song, which I don't do on the channel, and at the moment I have no intention of enabling. It's really important to me with my stream theme that we have a VOD archive of everything we do on Twitch, so if someone comes on 3 years down the line and really wants to watch Zelda, they can go back and watch Zelda when we first played it. And Zelda is cool because the music is awesome. I love the original BGM, and having request song on would get all of those videos flagged for copyright. So more it's the I like the original video game music more than I don't like request song, but I also don't like request song, and I don't want to get my videos flagged. Stream interaction is where people can do all sorts of little mini games. Out of all of these, I pretty much just use the viewer queues and the stream poll. Betting, I don't think I'll ever enable. Mini games, oh god. Mini games, bank heists. Somebody found out about this in our channel last December, I think, and it was a big thing. Like, it was spamming chat for about a day, and there were a lot of stir points that traded hands. basically these mini games are set up in such a way that mathematically, if you play them enough, there's a house cut such that more points will be deleted from the economy than created. But it still was kind of shaking confidence in the 3-point system in addition to spamming the chat, so I had to disable it and go in and look through the log and revert any changes in SP that happened for the brief window that it was open. I just disabled the guessing game. This is a pretty lucrative, I guess, area of DeepBot's development. So they spend a lot of time on it. If you can look in the About section for recent updates, they just recently added a roulette feature that I'm not terribly excited about. So I guess that in a lot of channels, they're a big fan of these sorts of mini games to play with the bot, where you put in points and you bet them and lose them and trade them with other people. I think we're going to keep point generation only for things like timestamping, so tasks that benefit the stream, and viewing the channel, and then occasional one-off events like bonuses for doing something cool, letting viewers transfer between each other. Stream poll is what I use when I need to quickly get people's opinion on something. It's also not terribly well featured, but I'll just give you a quick example. I can change some things like allow people to vote multiple times, set a timer, set a sphere point cost, which I try to avoid where possible. So here if I do vote test 1, or vote 1 I should say, I can even do my own system. You guys don't see any feedback from the vote, but I see this cool little graph that pops up that fills up as more people vote. And a couple times when I've played, I've put this graph on the screen, but it tends to be really ugly. It doesn't capture very well. Even if I turn on the green screen, it's not very pretty. So usually when I do a poll, it's something that's off the cuff, and I don't want to do a bunch of stuff adding it into the broadcasting software so you can see it. So I just track the results manually. This is another candidate, though, for something that we could potentially code our own version of it into DeepBot instead of using the native one that has some of those nice features like reporting back to chat what the current totals are when you vote. But that's a distant future kind of thing. I'd almost prefer to see DeepBot change their native version first. In queues, this is how we do like Smash Brothers and Mario Maker queues and the like. I can create a queue with a title. I can see how many people are in there. I can grab them, draw them, move them, let them know whether they've been drawn, that sort of thing. And this is the quote system, which big thanks to Jahan for helping me to clean this up and collect it. You can go to quotes.marstead.com to see this full list of quotes. This is where when you type exclamation point quote 3, you're drawing on this database that tracks who added it, when they added it, who said it, and so on. Moderation, I remember DeepBot got crap for the longest time. Bots are primarily intended to be used for auto moderation, and it didn't even have moderation tools until, I don't know, 6 months ago. But we pretty much just use this for the link detection algorithm, and we're very, very lenient about it. Some channels are super strict, but we just pretty much say if someone has less than an hour watched and they post a link, purge it, which essentially means time them out for 1 second. Just deletes all of their recent messages in chat, and send them a whisper saying, hey, please request permission before purging links. I don't have any banned words at the moment, but it could do the same thing. It could purge them, time them out, or ban them. And similar for spam protection, which could stop a certain number of symbols per message, emotes per message, which I don't have any plan on deploying, but if we did something like that, it would just purge the chat. Streamer chat is not very frequently used anymore. This is a way to connect to any other streamer who's currently running DeepBot. It's actually kind of surprising that they have something so full-featured into this application, but I guess the goal is to ask other people for help if you're having trouble getting something to work in DeepBot. And there's less reason to use this now because there's a really cool DeepBot Discord channel, to feature request channel and everything, where people are pretty responsive and it's a lot easier to sift through. And this is where I've gone to ask most of my questions and to get new features added to the bot when we've had issues that weren't resolved. And then we get pretty frequent updates. I'll scroll through here. We get a patch about once every week or so. It's got a few dry spells, but the dev team is always adding features, which is why I feel pretty comfortable with supporting them and paying that $5 a month subscription fee. In AnkhBot, which is where we have sound effects, AnkhBot does a lot of the things that DeepBot does, but not quite as well. Part of the problem is that it isn't supported anymore. The developer occasionally does bug fix patches, but he hasn't added any features and doesn't intend to add any features. So it's not really a good option for an ongoing bot if you're looking to add new stuff all the time. since you're quite a bit more limited in what you can do with it. The main thing that I use AnkhBot for, though, is for sound effects. We have a really nice system where I can assign things like what I want the command name to be, who should be able to use it, whether there's a global cooldown for all sound effects. So like one user can't just play 6 sound effects in a row, which right now I only have set to 1 minute. The volume for individual sound effects, I can disable one if it gets unruly really quickly, just with a click of a button. Minimum votes like we have for cat hype, they have to type it 3 times for it to go through. Who can use it? Point cost is something that might look into. Probably not. I think I'd probably make sound effects restricted to like subscribers and regulars before we did anything with making them cost points. I don't think that's really worth doing. There's also a second currency system in DeepBot, and this is kind of neat. I'm not really using it right now, but there's all sorts of things I can consider using it for. Just for data purposes, right now I have AnkhBot collecting the number of hours people spend in chat when the stream is offline, and I don't have any intention of actually using that for anything. I don't think that's a really good thing to incentivize. I guess it's nice to have more viewers when you host somebody on an auto-host list, and it's nice to have people hanging out, but that's kind of what Discord is for now, you know. You can see, since I'm only collecting data on people who are in chat when the stream is offline, you can see who spends the most time in chat when it's offline. Kind of cool. What I might use this for in the distant future is if we make some sort of secondary currency that's not related to view time. I want to avoid overcomplicating the stream, but I could do something like maybe every time you timestamp a video, you get timestamp points or task points or something. So if you're doing something that's helpful to the stream that's separate from supporting it monetarily or watching it, you get this secondary currency that maybe goes to more interesting rewards like, I don't know, sub-block time or beat sprites or some of my business cards or cool shit like that. So keep an eye out. I'm still thinking of ideas on ways to use this, but it's kind of cool that I can track a second currency over here, separate from the one that we have in DeepBot proper. So that's almost everything, but the meat of my bots is the custom commands module. So let's look at everything but that. Here I can run an auto hoster, which I currently have disabled. Basically what it does is it looks in this list, it finds the first streamer in the list that's online and throws them a host, and then every 45 minutes or so it rotates and tries to pick somebody else, which is a cool idea. You know, hosting is really good for networking. You'll often get hosts in return that can sometimes get you some permanent viewers. I definitely have viewers, regulars, and Patreon subscribers who came in from somebody else's channel. And it's good to help other people out, especially smaller streamers when they really need it. Just get a little bit of a boost so that they're higher in the viewer list. But hosting right now has a lot of problems, especially auto-hosting when you're not around there to manage it. I don't want people who sit around AFK on my channel to suddenly have somebody else's channel come on at 2 in the morning blaring volume. So until the hosting system's improved a little bit on Twitch's end, I'm probably going to keep this disabled. I can set some raffle alarms that I'm not so interested in. Event messages can do things like greet somebody when they first enter chat, which I used to do, not through DeepBot, but I used to have joins and parts enabled in Chatty. It would let me see when somebody popped in chat and when somebody left, and it was bad. I don't think you want to do that as a streamer. So people just want to lurk, and it freaks them out when they get called up by name when they pop in. So I'm not actually sure. I guess I'd have no way of knowing if there's someone who's in my chat now who's a regular or a subscriber, and maybe they wouldn't have hung out if I hadn't have engaged them. So if that's you, let me know. I'm curious. But I get the feeling that it can only be negative. It can't really be positive. Timed messages are kind of cool. This is that thing that pops up every now and then with the link to games.marstead.com or vote.marstead.com. The problem is that the way the bot works, it sends all those messages at the same time, whatever your timer is. So if you says I want to send this every 10 minutes, it sends every single message that's enabled every 10 minutes, and it would just completely spam chat. So I'm actually kind of using AnkhBot for this too. I have a second timer message in AnkhBot just to stagger them so that they don't come through into chat at the same time. I read a cool user solution in Discord recently on how to fix that. Basically, you have to write your own timer module, where instead of calling one command, you use like a random number generator to pick a random line from a text file, and then you have all the different lines you want in the text file. So every 10 minutes, it picks randomly one of those 10 things or so, and then displays it in chat. So that would be a bit of work for me. Probably take me a weekend or so to put together, since it would involve writing a bunch of text files and calling them. But I think that could be a cool solution, to have more information coming through in chat, but not seeing the exact same thing every 12 minutes and having it just filling up chat all the time. So we'll look into that. So now, for real, it's like it's clickbait. It's a reality show where they keep telling you to wait for the next commercial. We're going to talk about custom commands. This is what makes the channel, I think. These are things that are unique to twitch.tv/Marstead that, unless if another streamer has created these commands themselves, they don't have. And of course, the biggest one, our biggest unique system, is the voting system, and it's way more complicated than it sounds like it should be. In this stream, I'm only going to go into how it looks in the bot, but I'm going to do a separate video on the voting system in general that's going to walk through the voting spreadsheet and all the text files I have on my computer and how everything propagates from one place to the other. Basically, I have at least one vote command for all of the different games in the sheet. Right now there's about 40 as of August 26th. And there's not just one command for each vote. From your perspective, you only type in the one thing, like !game01, but that chains into about 3 other commands. This one is what ends up saving your vote to the text file. This one helps me to keep track of which game is currently winning, so you can check that in chat. That ends up, it's such a simple command, it puts out like 3 lines of text, but man, did it take a long time for me to get that to work. And then also I have a way to alert you what the current vote total is if you whisper your vote or you send it via Discord. So let me walk through that real quick. We'll try to make this brief because it's really just for coding nerds. So when you vote, this little command is an if statement that just tries to check to see if you tried to mass vote. So this system was a lot less complex before we were able to add mass voting in chat. It just sees if you just typed !game01, it says, okay, they just want to vote one time, let's jump to saving their vote. But if you put !game01 and then something else, like 2, 3, 4, 5, it wants to convert that into a cost to pass into the command that does the heavy lifting. So that's really just checking to see whether you specified a number of times you wanted to vote. After it does that, it passes that information into this one, !game01 save, and this is an ugly son of a bitch right here. Look at all that shit. Oh my god. It makes it such a pain in the ass if I have to go through and change one of these things, because look at all the failure points, like one bracket missing. You can't even like reorganize the command so that it's easy to read like a traditional coding language. It has to be left to right like that. And you can see that I've had to reproduce this for every vote. I'm scrolling through them here when I'm clicking this arrow. Game 12, 13, 14. And that doesn't seem like a big deal. Like for the most part, the commands stay the same, but I do have to change some things in here, like the game name. And you might ask, hey, Marstead, why do you have the game name in there? That seems like too much work. Why don't you just have a variable? Why don't you just have a variable that instead of saying, Kingdom Hearts, and you have to go and then type that every time you change it, just have it called Game15 name. Well, it turns out that DeepBot, while being quite full-featured, doesn't actually have variables as you might expect them. I can't just go somewhere and say Game15 name is Kingdom Hearts. A way that I could do that is by making a huge folder with hundreds of text files in it that represent all of my variables and calling those. But you'll notice that each time I call the value in a text file, like here where it says read file C, users, Marstead, Google Drive, vote Game15, look how much space that takes up. So it makes it that much harder for me to parse it, since I can't give that a variable name. And that's something that I might ask for from DeepBot at some point, just like a small module that lets you define variables, and don't keep the variables in the system. If you want to keep them as text files, that's fine. But just to improve the legibility and make it easier for me to bug track if something goes wrong. That's still something that I could do eventually, just to make my life a little bit easier, since I do call these things like the name of the game fairly frequently. So anyway, what happens in this command, it checks to see if you have enough points to do what you're trying to do, and if you don't, it stops you and gives you an error and doesn't apply the vote total. Then it looks in the current text file, which I'll go into in the voting system, sees what the current vote total is, adds your vote amount onto it, and then saves that to the text file. When all of that is done, it also saves a little log file that I'll show you guys. I started logging votes, I don't know, 3 months ago, in case there's ever any issues with the voting system. If my bot crashes, if somebody gets hacked or something bad happens, it lets me go back and revert those. So each of these saves onto a log that appends a little record saying who voted and what they voted for. Then at the end, it tries to see if the game is currently winning. So it goes to a document called, in this case, vote top short. There's also a vote top long for the short and long games. And it sees what the vote value for the currently winning game is. If the game that you voted for is now winning, it replaces that value and makes it available to be broadcast in chat when you type top votes. But sorting is not easy. It turns out, if you are interested, Google's sorting algorithms for computers. Sorting feels like something that we can do pretty easily as humans, but computers have a hard time doing it. They can't just eyeball it. They have to pretty much go through and compare every value, which is why, when someone says, wouldn't it be cool if instead of having to go to the voting spreadsheet, I could just type top votes in chat and see which game is winning. It took this, which is about 2,200 lines of admittedly mostly copy-pasted JSON in order to accomplish that, to just have this file that tells you which game is winning in both categories. So that's the voting system. It's really crazy. Whenever we make a change to it, it takes a lot of time because I have to go through and edit all of these and make sure that they all work and test all of them. But I think that we've come a long way since I first instituted it last year, something like August or November. I'll have to check my own patch notes. And it's much more fully featured and has many fewer issues now. Other things that I have going on in my bot, I guess this get counter command. This is how, I wanted to make sure that whenever you vote, that your vote total is broadcast into Twitch chat. I want it to be public. I might change that in the future and let people vote privately since I'm logging it, but for now I think everyone should see what the votes are and who's voting for what. But if you want to get some response when you whisper a vote or send a vote via Discord, I need to have another command that reports that data, and that's what these things do. Which is also why when you pipe get game01 into Twitch chat, it doesn't work, because if I turn that on, then it would say it twice whenever you voted. It would say both, Stalker has this many votes and you voted for this for Stalker. It would spam chat pretty quickly. I've got some cool, goofy stuff like chance. I've actually used this a couple times when I needed to flip a coin in real life and I didn't have one on me. It was faster for me to just go into my Twitch channel and type !coin, or 1d6 or 1d20 or whatever. The counter commands are over here. There's some cool stuff I can do, like restrict who's able to invoke the command, who's able to edit the command. In general, I try to keep these to VIPs and mods and keep a short cooldown on them so that people don't accidentally use them at the same time and increase the counter too much. But you can see here, you may have been looking when I was on the previous one, there's a lot of cool stuff I can do in custom commands. I can specify where they go to, where you can invoke them, whether they trigger a sound effect as well, whether they make something happen on screen, whether you get an access denied message, if they chain, how many seconds it takes for them to chain, how much they cost, which I used to use for voting, whether they're part of a group. I have a little counter for how many times they've been executed and so on. This mod system I'll get back to in a second. If it says no group, that means I've been lazy and haven't gone through and categorized them the way that I should, so I should fix that someday. Get some reminders, which are kind of nice. Cat cam is cool. It's in here somewhere, right? VIP, yeah. But cat cam is this cool thing that I'll talk about more when we do the OBS, the Open Broadcaster Software video. But basically there's a software called OBS Remote. It's a plugin that lets you let DeepBot speak to OBS and tell it to enable or disable the source. So I have it turn on the cat cam and then shut it off after 30 seconds. This is actually the reason why I haven't converted yet to OBS Studio. Like I said, I'll talk about that more in the OBS video because OBS Studio doesn't support OBS Remote just yet. The mod system is pretty sweet. As far as I know, I'm the only streamer that does this. I've seen a lot of posts on the Twitch subreddit talking about how they hate the moderation system on Twitch, that it gives you way too little information, doesn't let you audit moderator activity, things like that. Our channel doesn't really require a lot of moderation, so it's not a big deal. But I figured let's do this preemptively. Essentially what it's done is it's offloaded mod capability from Twitch, where people have sword badges, to DeepBot, where PiiqPiiq is the only thing that has a sword badge, and moderators accomplish commands by communicating them through the bot. So you can turn on your flag if you want to. You usually keep it off. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, it reduces sword spam, which can be really intimidating to new viewers and alienating if they come in and see that everybody who's talking has a little green flag next to their name. 2, it lets you take moderation actions privately, so you can whisper most commands to PiiqPiiq, and PiiqPiiq will execute them on your behalf. So you can send a message to somebody, you can mention the rules to somebody, you could ban somebody. And I'll still know, like, all these commands are, I've got a little mod log over here that tells me this person did this thing at this time, but chat doesn't necessarily know, so it would reduce any opportunity for retaliation or issues like that. So there's some cool functionality in this shadow mod system. I'm pretty proud of it. It's something I might share with the Twitch subreddit at some point in the Twitch community and say, hey, if you don't like the mod tools and you are here using this mod, you can move them over and have a lot more control over what mods can and can't do. It's thanks to this that I was able to pretty significantly expand my mod pool from something like 6 or 7 people to, like, 20, 30. So yeah, that's pretty much it for DeepBot and AnkhBot. It's a really cool system. There's a lot that I can do with it. There's a lot I can't do with it. DeepBot is not a Turing-complete programming language, so I'm still dependent on the developers to add features to it if there's something that I want to do that it can't do right now. There's a few things that I could technically do, but it would require weeks of effort and lots and lots of text files on my computer, which creates more and more failure points for things to go wrong, right? So whenever someone comes up with an idea of something I can do, I have to consider, is it actually feasible? But so far, the dev community has been really receptive to feedback. I probably had like 7 or 8 features that I've asked for that have been implemented specifically because I asked for them, and have been really helpful in getting the stream to work as it does. Yeah, so that's it. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night. We'll see you for the next video where I'll probably talk about the voting spreadsheet natural transition. Catch you later.